How's guys? So I recently upgraded my home internet to a 250 megabits per second fiber connection. And that sparked the idea, you know what? Do people properly understand the different types of internet connections we have? And welcome to the first ever episode of Tech Explained, where we're talking about internet connections. So, diving into it, there are essentially three types of internet connections that you can have. Actually four. The first is your most basic, which is the old school way, which is ADSL. And ADSL was a form of internet connection that ran on copper cables. There is some parts of the world that still use ADSL. That is the full meaning of ADSL will be on the screen right now. But as people moved away from copper connections and moved away from physical telephones, that became a thing of the past. Then came about, technically in between came cellular devices or your 4G or LTE internet connection. And that is basically a connection made through a cellular tower that gives you internet connection. The third one is going to be your fiber connection. And your fiber connection is basically where your data or your information that you are pulling up your websites and all of those things are transmitted over long distances over fiber connections. And fibers are basically strands of glass that are transmitting your internet. And to go a little more in depth, it basically there's light rays that are bouncing within that tube of glass, and then there's different frequencies for the different packets and all of those things. The fourth internet type that we can talk about that's available to every consumer is obviously your satellite internet connection, and that's been made popular by Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Starlink. That is basically where your internet connection, similar to how satellite TV works, where you're connecting to a satellite and that's providing you with your internet connection. And those are the four types of internets that we want to talk about. But what more essentially I wanted to talk about, because I spoke about internet speed, is understanding the different types of internet speeds. And so I moved from 100 megabits per second. So my line would allow me to upload files at 100 megabits per second and download files at 100 megabits per second. And now I've moved up to a 250 megabit up and down. So what does that mean? Most people think, okay, Prashant, you moved from 100 to 250, so you've got 2.5 times the speed, so you can download files faster and your websites load faster. That isn't necessarily the case, right? So back in the day when we used to have 1 meg and 4 megabits per second connections, that was the case, right? Because that meant taking forever to load a website compared to it loading much or 4 times the speed. But when it comes to a certain point, like in the case of mine, where 100 to 250, and I'm not necessarily making this example specifically, but there is a point where your actual internet speed no longer affects it. Because remember, the way that the internet works is your PC, phone or whatever is connecting to another computer which is storing information like the website and whatever, and it's pulling that information through and it's loading it. So the way that the internet works is there's a sort of load balancing system on the internet that basically means, so because I have a 250 megabits per second link doesn't mean that I'm going to connect to that server, download everything at 250 megabits per second, because then what will happen is if there's other people trying to connect to that server, I'm going to get the full link and everyone else is going to get left behind at 1 meg and 2 meg. So the load balancing happens where it's almost like, as much as I have a 250 megabits per second link, the server that's hosting my website or hosting the files that I'm trying to download might only allow 5 megabits per second maximum download speeds from that server to give everyone a fair and equal opportunity at downloading the files. So as much as I might have a 250 megabits per second link, I might have a 1 gig link even. That doesn't mean I'm going to download the file at 1 gig per second, right? There's some instances like with OneDrive and like Google services where the distributed services actually pool together and they give you the files from multiple different locations so that you can download it faster, but there also is a cap. So upgrading from like 100 to 250, it doesn't mean that my files are necessarily going to load faster, but what it does mean is that I can support more clients or more computers and phones connecting through my internet, where my 100 megabits per second might be able to support maybe 2 TVs streaming Netflix at 4K, a laptop that's watching YouTube and someone playing PlayStation and 5 people on their phones. Whereas the 250 can support 2.5 times that, so like 4 TVs and like 3 laptops and 10 phones. That's the difference between 100 and 250 megabits per second. And I hope that this has helped you understand. And the way that I wanted to use an analogy, I don't know if it'll make sense, but it's like almost like the internet is this cup, right? So I've moved from a small cup, from a narrow cup, and I've given it so much more. But the amount of internet that can be pulled through, or the amount of files that can be pulled through, is still this same. This is very bad. I can only pull that one file stream, and it doesn't matter how big my internet connection is, it's still going to download at that one file stream. Bad example, but I hope this does make sense. So yeah guys, if you want to see any other tech explained, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. But guys, thank you very much for watching. My name is Prashant, and if you enjoyed this video, you can let me know by giving a like rating if you did. And if you aren't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss on any of our future videos. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.